Stryngs is a fantastical tale of life and death that's seen through the eyes of an aging puppeteer. And it's shot on 35 millimeter and shot at Scarborough Fair in Waxahachie and part of it in downtown Dallas in the extreme hot sun, 106 degrees heat last summer.
Was this your first time working on 35?
Yeah, for me it was. I mean, I've done a lot of smaller projects whenever I was a child, you know, like an 8 millimeter and 16 millimeter, and I did a lot of photography in 35 millimeter. But given that film is unfortunately a dying format, you know, now was the time to finally take the step up and finally do something professionally on 35.
And where did you guys come up with this story? This is really interesting.
Derek?
About a puppeteer.
I don't know, it's a good question. I just wanted to shoot something about a puppeteer because I thought it was unique, and there was a short film that I saw the year prior to that that had no dialogue, and it was all visuals, and it was just a beautiful movie, and I said I want to try to do something like that, tell the story of that dialogue, and I think a puppeteer was the perfect, I think it was the perfect story for it.
And I thought that the set design was amazing, and I assumed that you guys didn't have like Michael Bay money.
No, not at all.
So, what were some of the challenges, and how did you overcome some of that to make it look like a high quality, professional, you know, film?
We used a gentleman named Chris Barquette, who I'd worked with before as the production designer. And I guess it was kind of a mix of using the locations that we had and then placing, you know, distinct props in certain areas. It was very confined. Everything was storyboarded out, so we knew exactly how far we could go before you would see a Budweiser emblem in the background or something, because we were shooting on Scarborough Fair. It was a tavern, right?
Yeah.
It was like a bar. So we had this one area, and we just built a fake wall, and Chris Barquette did all of the awesome work along with Jessica Rice, that was our set decorator. So they did, and it took about 3 months of, he also built all the stages, everything was handmade, costumes as well, but he didn't do that. But it took about 3 months of pre-production.
Yeah, it was the Cat and Fiddle Tavern that we shot in, and the walls that Chris used were actually walls that had been stuck in my garage since 2010, 2009, I guess, because they were used on another film of mine, Beautiful Exposure. So pretty much since then, they had never been used until now. So might as well use them.
So the puppets were handmade as well?
The ones that were used, the ones that were featured.
Yeah, the ones that were featured, but we were given a generous donation, I guess, to let us borrow them. The Dallas Puppet Theater was very awesome at letting us pretty much use anything. Like Pick Smith, he's the owner of Dallas Puppet Theater. We just walked into his shop and he read the script and saw Derek's storyboards and just loved it and just said, take whatever you want and you can bring it back whenever you want. So, and that's, I mean, everything on the set and as far as preparation, everything just kind of came together. It's just amazing on how that happened.
The role obviously we were looking for an elderly gentleman, and it was actually Geoff that suggested Grant, that he knew Grant through a couple of other things I guess you've been to.
Grant James,
yes. And we gave him the script and then met him, and he said it was different, which I didn't really know how to take that at first. So I didn't think we had him really. And then he ended up, I guess, talking to you, Geoff, and said, yeah, he'll do it. He thought it was great. So
yeah,
we got Grant.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
When I first read the script, I was on a flight from Chicago back to here, and when I got off the flight, I immediately called Derek and I said, all right, I need two things. I need 35 millimeter and I need Grant James. And he's like, who's Grant James? And so once Grant James came on and read the script, he was just like, when do we start shooting? And it's like, well, we'll have to wait. But glad that you're interested. You know, I couldn't have thought of anyone, you know, more better to play Ambrose the Great other than Grant.
What do you think were the real challenges of making a film like that? Was it the making 35 millimeter film? Was it the costumes? Was it set design?
It was all of that. I mean, I've never been the sole producer of something where I wasn't directing before. It was always either I'm directing and kind of producing as well. But that was actually, kind of settling, because I knew that Derek needed to focus on his vision while I kind of focused on all the business side of things. So that was really challenging. But given that everyone was just so open to just giving us their, the puppets, and Scarborough Fair was amazing to us. They even hooked us up with hotel rooms, which was something extremely unexpected. And of course, Derek knowing Victoria Chick and Adam Taggart, who did the costuming, everything just kind of came together. As far as the challenges, it was just the stress of one of the mirror of one of those things. You could just get that phone call at any second saying, "Hey, we can't do it," and it's 2 days before we start shooting. So it was just the stress of that.
The other thing too is that Benjamin Tubb, our cinematographer, has worked with film before. So as far as that, we felt a little more comfortable, because he had worked with film on a couple of different occasions, and he knew how to handle it, and he loved it. He's like a boy in a candy shop or something. So he really enjoyed that, and that was actually really, we felt more comfortable with him being able to do that. And then I think that just the heat, because we're shooting in June, or was it July? June, yeah. We shot in June. It was over 100 degrees, and we're in a cottage with, people, and especially Grant James in costume. It had to be over 110 degrees, and that was probably the most challenging thing, I think, was the heat.
Yeah,
and the heat. The sheer amount of setups. We had quite a bit of shots. We had over 100 shots for 3 days to get finished. We had a lot of dolly movements and a lot of. We had a couple of overhead shots that were extremely difficult just because of the space reasoning, but we got them all done, and that was the biggest challenge, was just get it done.
And as far as the 35mm part goes, and adding more stress to it, we ended the shooting with 10 feet of film left, and we only had about five reels of 1,000 feet. And then of course after that you celebrate, but then it's like, okay, what now? And then that's when we had to literally ship all 5 reels to Los Angeles, and so it's like, oh man, but it's that kind of old school stress that I loved. It really took me back to why I became an artist in the first place. It's, even though it's stress, it's the stress that I absolutely love. And because who knows, what if it gets lost in the mail, or they take it on a plane instead of ground and such. Whenever I dropped off the film, I actually followed the FedEx truck a little bit afterward, just to make sure that he was going the right way.
Wow.
So that's how stressful it was, and how antsy I was to see this movie.
You get a job at FedEx just to make sure.
Right. But then when we got the film back, it was, we're like, yay, take it out and take a look at it. It was a terrific moment for us.
All right, Kareem, now tell us about your film. It's been a
while.
long road for you.
Yes.
And it's the end of the road for you.
Yes. It's been a long road, our theme song. It is. Science of Man has that line in it from Exit 380. But 01 is my feature science fiction debut. It's a film about a young man that discovers artificial intelligence on the internet, and they become friends. And the hilarity ensues. Well, not hilarity, but the plot unfolds as 01 and Devin begin this relationship, which challenges Devin's perception of humanity. And I think it's a really powerful story in this digital age, where we are so connected that we think we're connected, but in reality we're disconnected from one another, because everything is a quick text, a Facebook post, not even a phone call anymore. And so I wanted to examine that, and examine our role in this digital world that we now live in, that it's not going to change. It's only going to intensify as the years go on, and as technology increases. It's a tale of morality. It's a tale of It's a human tale. It's got humor, got a little bit of romance, and it's got some it's got some intense themes that I'm really proud of that we were able to squeeze into this 90-minute movie.
And again, with the challenges of coming up with money to, do a...
It's always a challenge. It's always a challenge.
And you tackled a science fiction film, which...
Right, and the science fiction film is even more of a challenge because you want to do more, but you only have this small sandbox to play in, so you've got to come up with other things to really make the story intense, and that always happens with the script. And every film happens with the script and in pre-production, because if you shoot junk, if you pre-produce junk, you're going to shoot junk, and then your film's going to be junk. And I'm being very nice with junk. It really starts with the script, and you've got a solid script, and you build a team around you that can help you realize your vision. Just like, Stryngs was extremely complex, and much more complex than my film as far as vision, because mine took place in the real world. So I just had to emulate the real world. They had to emulate another world. But the visuals, the production design, all of these things are needed to help a director get their vision. And if you don't have the right people on board, that could be a nightmare. And luckily we had the right people on board.
Between 0 and 1, there are infinite possibilities.
If you have a really good solid script and don't keep it the first draft, it keeps getting better and better at the same time. And as the writer, if you have something special, and you have something solid to present to possible investors maybe. And it just really helps bring everybody together. So
yeah. And Geoff, to reiterate on Jeff's point, is that when you have a project that starts off high quality, and that's all subjective, but if other people think it's a high quality project, they'll get on board and they'll do things that you would have never expected, just like Geoff talked about. Yeah. They will say, we want to see this, we want to be a part of this, and that's where they break their back to help you out and help you realize your vision. And that's a really good feeling when you sit back and you realize that people really do. And that's proof. People can see your film and say, oh, that's a great film. But for a fact that when people came on, they thought it was a great project because of the things they did versus their compensation or the time they had put into it versus their reward. And that's a really good feeling.
Well, as far as the script goes, talking about the script, again, science fiction is kind of hard to challenge because you've got those film nerds that dissect everything, those sci-fi nerds. What kind of research did you do as far as...
Well, what I did was I took every AI movie that there was and I took it, dissected it, and made it into something else. Because what I wanted to do is there were going to be elements. People were going to say, oh, this is like The Matrix, this is like The Terminator, this is like War Games, this is like Short Circuit, which...
That's the best one, by the way.
Short Circuit. And I took these iRobot. I took these
live action version of WALL-E.
Right. Don't tell you're spoiling the film. There is a WALL-E SSC.
I love Short Circuit too.
All right. Okay. So I took these tropes and these things that people are going to sit here and wait to see what happens. Oh, the robot's going to do this, and he's going to do this, and this is going to happen. And they play out, then not so much. Then they play out, it's like, okay, yeah, I was right, not so much. And then at the end of the film, which I won't tell you, your expectations or what you thought was going to happen really didn't happen. And what I wanted to do, the gist of the script, and it's an origin story for a new superhero. And that's all I'm going to say as far as how I achieved that. You have to see the film. There's absolutely some plans in place to make it part of a shared universe, because I say there's so many stories to tell about digital about digital creation and AI, our digital lives. There's just so many different stories to tell. And my next film, not so much in a shared universe, I call it my cyberpunk trilogy, I guess, where it's about a group of professional internet trolls. You go to Facebook, you go to YouTube, you go to message boards. There's this guy that says, you show a picture of a cute baby, and he's like, wow, that baby would be really great dead. And you're like, what? Who is this guy? And what ensues is a flame war incited by this troll. And his whole goal is to make everybody upset. And that's the gist of the script, but it's a lot more, and I really don't want to get too much into it, but it's about professional internet trolls and why they are professional internet trolls and the results of this trolling.
Now for this event, three nights, 2 films, 1 indie experience. That's our tagline for this event.
Do it again so I can follow up.
3 nights, 2 films, 1 indie experience.
I like that. He came up with that, and I actually like it.
Celebrate independent film.
Right. And my tagline is, between 0 and 1, there are infinite possibilities. That's a binary geek math thing.
There's 1.1, there's 1.2, there's 1.3. I mean, I can go on.
Yeah.
If someone's willing to give us Michael Bay money, we'll be happy to knock something out. So, I mean,
Really? Did you have to use Michael Bay?
she used Michael
Well,
Bay first.
because you mentioned Michael Bay earlier.
What?
So I was like,
I was being
it just
totally
stuck in my
facetious.
mind.
Totally
Steven
facetious.
Spielberg money.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
You know,
You're getting
that
there.
works too.
You're getting there.
Tim Burton, Terry Gilliam money.
I'm there with you on
Yeah,
that.
Tim Burton, Terry Gilliam. If this could get back to Tim and Terry, that would be amazing.
I think it would be
Yes.
a match made in heaven.